Hey guys, and welcome to MHG Live. My name is Lizy Hoeffer, and I am the guest host today for this awesome show. I'm one of the OG power partners for my home group. I've been around since the beginning days, since Agent 43. And I'm joined by the amazing Danny Brown, who I happen to know from my regular day life, right? Back in college.
Yeah, we were roommates in college.
Yes. And fun story, we now work in real estate together, and we're going to talk about the market, business, what the heck's been going on, because Danny pointed out that it has been 7 months since he's seen me, and he's only talked to me once since the pandemic, which means that I'm an awful friend. So
this is true, but I am just as awful because I haven't really reached out to you either. Although I will shoot you a text message, and it'll be several days before I get a...
I know.
Because you're just so busy.
Well, my personal life just always takes a backseat. It's like, oh, this boy had no friends anymore.
Well, you're running a huge business. You've got an amazing family, and so I get it.
Ditto, by the way. Congratulations on all of your success.
Thank you.
So, for everybody who's out there who maybe doesn't know you yet, why don't you tell us a little bit about your team, your business, your philosophy on running your team, because it's a lot different than most real estates run.
Yeah, so I mean...
Real estate agents run, by the way.
Like I said, Lizy and I go way, way back. She was my personal mentor and friend for a very long time, and she actually... Still am. Yeah, I look up to her very much, and she runs an amazing business that I'm just so impressed with where you started and where you're at today. It's just incredible.
Oh my God, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. But I've been in real estate since 2007. I started with Coldwell Banker and joined a team, and I really got my education in real estate when the housing market was collapsing and I was doing bank-owned properties. So I was in a fortunate position with the team I was on to be able to take that workload on, and we were doing about 150 bank-owned deals a year for about 3 to 4 years straight. So I basically became a veteran in the real estate world very, very fast, just due to the number of transactions we were doing. And I always like to tell people that it was not luxurious. It was a grind. It was working, 70, 80 hours a week to just make...
I know, and the home prices were like $60,000 back then.
The cheapest property I've ever sold was a 2-bed, 1-bath condo in Maryvale for $10,000.
Wow.
Yep, and I remember joking at the time. I was so green
that person has had a 200% markup in their property.
Well, I joked that I should put this on my Amex card and buy it, and I regret not doing that, because at this point it would be worth probably quadruple.
200 at least.
Yeah, and be cash flowing as a rental. I wish I could go back to my younger self and do things slightly different. But then I transitioned into a buyer's agent and helped buyers exclusively. And then pivoted and decided that I kind of hit a max on what I could do by myself and got tired of paying 50-50 splits. And so I branched out and decided to start my own team. And I actually joined with your husband at the time, Skylar, and we started Myriad Real Estate Group. And he and I put our heads together along with you and just figured there had to be a better way to form a real estate team rather than what Gary Keller in the Red Book dictates all of us do. That tends to be kind of the Bible that we all follow. Where you got your team lead, you got your people below you, you bring in the leads, you give it to them, they close the business, they pay you a cut, you pay them a cut, and they're basically operating their own business within your business, and the turnover is very high. Just like me, these buyer's agents realize that at a certain point they don't need you anymore, that they can buy their own internet leads, and they can develop their own sphere, and they can grow a business, and they tend to branch out and leave your team, and then you've got to bring somebody else in to replace them. So what we decided to do was create a real estate team based on a salary model. So I like to say that it's not an innovative business model, because we're just running a traditional business within the real estate world. And so everybody on my team is paid a salary. They have very specific roles within the real estate transaction, and they're competitive salaries. We've got 401ks. I pay all their licensing and dues, so we have some benefits. I can't afford health insurance to offer, but thankfully my home group does. So they're, everybody's licensed, so they qualify for that if they need it. And it's been the most fun that I've ever had in real estate. When I go on vacation, I was actually in California all last week, I completely unplug. I'm not answering emails, I'm not answering phone calls, I am doing nothing except enjoying my vacation.
And your team also has work-life balance, right?
Yes, they do, yeah.
Because that's something like, so part of when you run a business through real estate, and not just like a commission-based business, but like an actual business, you know, where people have job roles, functions, that's like one of the side effects, right, of being able to run it that way, is that everyone has work-life balance. And in real estate, it can be just one of those like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week type businesses.
Yeah.
You know, if you let it be, right? And one of the negative pitfalls of running a team with only commission people is that commission people, they're entrepreneurial, which is great, right? We're entrepreneurial, right? But you also dilute the number of people that you can employ, because not everybody feels comfortable with the instability of being a commission-based person. And so you open up your pool of potential employees, potential team members, when you make something salaried.
Yeah, what I found was when we made this change, when we were looking to hire, we got so much interest from really hardworking, fantastic people who want security and had actually never really considered real estate as a career because it's commission only. And I think the world is made up of more people who are looking for financial security rather than who are looking to make, you know, potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars, be an HGTV star and have their name up in lights. I think that's a person is wired very, very differently. That's like you and I. So looking outside of the real estate world for team members, it's increased the number of people that we can potentially hire.
Yeah, 75% of the population, guys, falls into a category of compliant or stable, right? You're a disc test person. So that means that they're going to be employees. They're going to be team members. They're going to want a 9-to-5 job. They're going to want to have a direction for what to do in their positions and a roadmap for success. So it's that 25, those drivers, those influence people that really, that want to see their name in lights, that want to see bigger things, that need to be a director. And so, yeah, I think that's very true what you said. There's lots of data to back that up.
Yeah, and like you said, work-life balance. They do work more than 9 to 5. You know, we let them know that this is real estate, so it will involve some nights and weekends, of course, but you get flex days during the week. So we really monitor the number of hours that they're putting in and make sure that they do have that work-life balance. And when they go on vacation, they're completely unplugged. So we're covering any of their emails. So we have each position has assigned individuals to back those people up if they're out of town, if they're double booked. And so we're all collectively working together for the benefit of our client. We're not competing with one another. And one of the biggest frustrations I had when I was on a team is that if I went out of town, I had to pay someone who is part of my team an hourly rate or part of the commission to help me if I was going out of town. And I always felt like we're a team. We're supposed to be working together. Why do I have to pay you to help? Like it didn't make sense, and I felt that it created kind of a bad culture. And like I said, this is the most fun I've ever had in real estate. Our culture is amazing. The people that I have on my team are awesome. I love them to death, and you know, I take care of them and I worry about them probably too much at times. And it's just fun. I like it a lot. This model I'm never going back.
And it's cool because you did try out the traditional model a couple of times before you were like, all right, I'm turning course. And then it was a big undertaking because it obviously costs a lot of money up front to be able to support a salary-based model, which I think is a lot of the reason why real estate agents don't gravitate towards this, right, is because there is a big upfront cost to it. So
sure.
What did that transition look like? And then once we talk about this, I want to talk about what this business model has looked like in the pandemic. And we were talking about this this fail forward moment that he had in August that I really feel like you guys will be interested in.
Yeah. So we did try the previous model, and if all the frustrations just were there. You know, you're constantly battling with your buyer's agents, and they're just money.
Well, entrepreneurial people want to do it their own way.
Yeah.
Right? They want to build their own business, and it's kind of like having a two-headed snake. in business, and so it's tough. And so it takes the right type of people to be able to run that type of team. So I have seen it successfully done many times.
Sure. There's some amazing teams, part of my home group, that run it the traditional way, and
100%.
it works for them. This just works for me. And I basically had to blow up the team and just start over. I had one solid salaried person who is now my COO. She started as a transaction coordinator with us, and I am terrible at paperwork. I am terrible at profit and loss statements and all of that stuff, and she is fantastic at it. And so she's my rock. She's my number two. She is who, if I'm having a bad day, I complain to. And so she and I started this with your help from scratch. And it was hiring, she helped me with listings and kind of managed the day-to-day listings, and I became a buyer's agent again. I was out in the field showing homes and grinding it out, so it was just the two of us to start. And then, we slowly started to bring people on to fill in these different roles, and every position we've created has basically been a hybrid type role, because there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done. And as we grow and as we can attract more talent and continue to maintain our profit margins, we can start to focus those positions and bring on additional team members to kind of be more specialized. So we brought on a showing agent, and she's amazing. We started her off at a lower salary, making basically more than what the average realtor, according to it, makes in their first year, and paid for all of their dues. While she was in school, we paid her the salary because her job at that time was to go to school, pass the test as quickly as possible, and we're going to pay you to do that. And then once you're done, we're going to bump your salary up a little bit because now you're fully licensed and you're worth more money to me because you can help me do stuff. And then she shadowed me and learned how to view homes and how to show property, and she became our showing agent. So she was responsible for starting to convert leads, stay in contact with our buyers, and basically almost be like a buyer's agent. But I was still
negotiation.
Right. I was still super involved. And what I liked about that is it kept me engaged with our clients and helped me continue to grow our database, so that if this showing agent ever leaves, that relationship is built between me and the client a little bit more than it would be if I was just hands off and she was a full buyer's agent just managing her own clients. So there's not that loss of your database when somebody leaves.
So how have you guys been doing in the pandemic, right? So what does the shift look like, and where do you get the majority of your business? What does that look like?
Yeah, so when the pandemic started, when it first started, a lot of people, I was like, this isn't a big deal. It's like the flu. I don't understand what everybody's freaking out about. Then I listened to a Joe Rogan podcast in February, and he had a scientist on it, and I was like, holy shit, this is going to be really bad. And I just, total 180. I was like, this is going to suck. And so we tightened up. We cut our budgets back. We pulled back a lot, like a lot of people do, on marketing. We stopped print marketing, and we just kind of went into crisis mode early. We were super fortunate that we got PPP money, so everybody's salaried, and so I was able to work with actually a great friend and contact at a bank who I've helped with real estate several times, and he helped us qualify and get those funds. So that definitely took a lot of the pressure off. And so with our scaled back version, like I said, we went into that crisis mode, and I made a commitment during that time that I was going to reach out to every single person in our database by phone and just check in with them to see how they were doing. And then through the core, Rick Ruby assigned us sending 20 thank you cards a week, handwritten thank you cards. So I just pulled up my VIP list first, started sending them thank you cards just for being them and letting them know that I was thinking about them, and if they need anything, to reach out to us. We started offering to pick up groceries for people if they felt really scared, and this is all kind of during the quarantine, and just tried to be a source of information and just be thoughtful during that time. And so I worked through VIPs, then I worked through our A clients, and then I worked through all of our B clients.
Yeah, and how many people are in your database?
Boy, I think we're right around 1,000.
So 1,000. And so when he's talking about VIPs, he categorizes the amount of influence that particular person will have on a business. So a VIP partner is just somebody who refers you 4 closed deals in a year. And then they're categorized, obviously in rank of how much influence that person has on your database.
So I have what's called a VIP pyramid, and it's 85 names, and I've filled it in, and it changes. Mm-hmm. So if somebody on there moves out of state, which has recently happened, then I take them off my VIP list because they're no longer here in Phoenix, and substitute in somebody else's name. So I have it broken down into 3 categories. 4, I apologize. And the first level is called my Intimate 10, and those are people. That's my parents who live here locally because they're raving fans.
And his dad is a wonderful referral source.
Exactly. My wife is in my Intimate 10. Mm-hmm. Who else? My best friends. The people who are in my Intimate 10 are people that I would go on a weekend trip with and have no problem with. Then I have my next 25, and those are people that I would spend a day with, that I would hang out with and have no problem. And that's 25 people. And then the next 25 are those that I would probably just have lunch or coffee or dinner with, but wouldn't necessarily want to spend the entire day with them or go on a trip with them. And then the next 25 are business contacts who are influential in the business world. And basically what I do is I break down my days of the week into who I'm calling, and Mondays are VIPs. Pull out that VIP list, and I just start working through that pyramid on who I'm calling for that day, and we send those people gifts. And my goal is to call every person on that VIP pyramid at least once a month.
And so you've obviously started doubling down on your database, you stopped print marketing, and so a lot of what that is called in terms of marketing is their sales funnels, right? So our pillars of business, right? So everybody's business successful businesses typically have about 3 different pillars. Database is usually the largest and the most profitable. And then there's like secondary, so it might be social media, it might be open houses, it might be door knocking, farms, right? You name it, right? So there's additional internet leads. So there's different, but typically your second and your third pillar of businesses are pretty cost intensive, right? And they are beginner buckets to start filling in and growing the database, right? Because a past client is worth so much in a database, right? Because they, one, have done business with you, they know, like, and trust you, and can refer additional business to you, right? So there's that. So like all of those things. So you've doubled down on the database, right? You're sending letters at the heart, you're calling, you're doing all this stuff. How has that, what have the results been? Because obviously this is an epic year in real estate.
Yes.
But
so when this all started, we really did a deep dive into our numbers, and I sat down with Morgan, my COO, and we looked at everything. And I hate internet leads. I hate them. I hate that it takes so much time and so much money to go after them, and we were spending an inordinate amount of time chasing down these internet leads, and it was very costly.
Danny Brown hates internet leads.
It's still a pillar of our business, but we were using the Sync platform, and we were using Ava, which is an AI for
so you cut
following
out
up.
that,
Right. So we canceled that, and we just pivoted to an IDX and put it on our website, something that works just as well, but a lot simpler. And we went from spending, like $1,800 a month just for the platform, and then another couple thousand a month for PPC
which is pay-per-click
to $400 a month for just the IDX, and then we do some PPC, but not nearly as aggressive. And so we absolutely took a hit in terms of our closings, but I knew that we would, because for me, I'd rather spend that $3,000 a month on my database and loving on them and getting referrals from them, because it's so much nicer to pick up the phone and call somebody who already knows you and trusts you because there's that connection, than trying to convince an internet lead that you're not a piece of crap looking to steal their money or take advantage of them. It's just a huge difference. So the amount of time it takes to convert a referral, a warm handoff, versus the amount of time and energy it takes to convert an internet lead, it's just night and day. And I think the statistic is, for each internet lead, there's at least 8 other realtors probably contacting them at the same time you are. So it's hyper competitive as well. So that conversion rate, if you're good at it, is what, 2-3% maybe?
So totally. So one of the things that Danny and I were talking about offline that I'm really trying to get him to start talking about is that with the pandemic, one of the weirdest side effects was that all of a sudden real estate became literally
the
real estate
fell off a cliff.
Armageddon.
Yes.
I mean, it has been insane. There was already a super low supply of homes for sale, and we've seen that over the last course of the couple of years, but then building has halted, and then all of a sudden no one wants to live in California and New York anymore, and now they all want to live in affordable places like Phoenix, Arizona, and Idaho, and all of our places that were under $300,000 for the average median sales price, right? So we have just been gangbusters. And so if you were smart and you started doubling down on your database, you probably have had a record year regardless, right? But it has just been so overwhelming. And we were talking about before we started recording this, about just how 24/7 it's been. It has been non-freaking stop, and how there was a moment in time where he was just like, I can't do it anymore. I can't do it anymore. I can't make another phone call. I can't get out of bed. I can't prospect anymore. I need a break. And making that conscious decision, right? Especially because his entire real estate focus has been on great culture, work-life balance, being able to bring the stability and career and professionalism really back into a real estate team. This is the the polar opposite of what you were trying to create.
Yeah.
And so there was just a moment where, as an entrepreneur, he just hit a wall and he just stopped. And so what happened because of that?
Well, I did hit a wall, and I think I probably just freaked out. It was just I can't do this anymore. I was working from home, and I'm huge into working out, and the gyms were closed, and so I was just this big ball of stress, and I just hated it. And I decided on Memorial Day that Tuesday I was going to start going back to the office, and I was going to get myself in order and start back into my routine, working out at home in the morning, going to the office. Nobody was there, so it was totally comfortable and safe.
No one's judging you here.
Yeah. So
we're almost 6 feet apart.
Right. So it really helped, and it got my head on straight and got us refocused. And I think my team is. All
right. He's not going to say the thing.
I had a train wreck of an August. We had August sucked. We were negative 47% in our profit, and I knew that August was going to be terrible because we generated 20 leads when we're supposed to be generating at least 50,
But the prospecting stopped.
It did.
Right? 3 months before
Yes.
that happened, right? So before he had this aha moment, I've got to get my structure back in my day. I've got to figure my life out. I can't just keep going there. Yeah, it was going to be another 30 minutes. We've both had this exact same thing happen. So he was saying, I've had this terrible month. I only had 3 closings. It was awful. And I was like, dang, Danny, that's really hard to do in real estate Armageddon. And so we had this chuckle, but the thing is, he's like, yeah, but I'm following it up with a month where we're going to close over 14 deals. And I'm like, that is super solid and a lot. If you're a real estate team with one main salesperson, that's a ton. The average salesperson closes 6 real estate deals a year. So that's basically someone's whole year in a month. So you're following. I had a similar moment, right, where this all got to me at the very beginning of the pandemic. I was like, oh no, if I fall out of my routine, all hell is going to break loose. So I like literally double down on my routine even harder. Like I'm not somebody who gets glammed up every day, you know, not like today, but like I literally started waking up at 5. I'm like, I'm getting dressed up, I'm wearing my business clothes, I'm going to go to the office even if I'm the only person there. And that lasted, you guys, like 30 days. And then all of a sudden it was like one day I'd wear sweatpants, and then like 30 days later I looked homeless, going into the office, drinking 4 cups of coffee, just working a gazillion hours. And I kept saying this whole thing like, God, next year's going to be so much better. This is just a blip in time. I just have to hold on. I just have to hold on. And then people, as they would talk to me on the phone, would be like, are you okay? I'd be like, yeah, why?
Yeah, I mean, I was wearing shorts. Yeah. I was t-shirts. I was not being professional. It didn't work. And my routine, I'm very routine. And you know this, and when I was drinking at night, I was staying up later, I was sleeping late, and it was just awful for my psyche. My team sensed it, and they started to slack off, and we felt it in our business. And when I saw that we generated that few leads, I knew that the summer would suck. And so it was before August that we made that pivot, and I was like, okay, we have to get refocused. I need to change everything about what I'm doing and get back into business mode, refocused, and lead by example. When you have salary people, you have to lead by example because they look to you to see what you're doing, and what if you're slacking off, they know they're going to be able to get away with it, so they're going to slack off. Especially when you're all working remote. You know, everybody's working from home. So that was mine too. It affected our culture. So we started doing Zoom meetings every single day to do check-ins. I've slowly started to get my team to come back if they're comfortable. It's not a requirement to the office. So they're coming in a little bit more, and it's really elevated our culture. Everybody's attitude is higher. We're generating the number of leads we have more leads coming in than we can handle. So we have 14 closings set for September. We've already got half a dozen on the board for October. And so we're really excited to finish the end of the year strong, and we are going to do better this year than we did last year.
Which is always the goal in business.
Correct. So
part of this transition is just realizing, one, that there isn't any magic reset January 1st. Yeah. 2021 is probably going to be similar to 2020, and deciding that right now is the life that you have to live and impact makes all the difference. So for me, I got out of my pajamas, again, started getting ready for work, started working out. I think health is more about the way that you feel and the energy that you have versus the way you look. So just, but being healthy is super important. Getting back into those routines. If you're somebody that needs coaching, get into coaching. You just have to figure out what that structure looks like. And for me, and this is something that, I hope that you've taken from some of the coaching that we've done, the last 30 days in September should just be a month to really just wrap up the fiscal year. Whatever is going to happen from now until the end of the year, you've already generated that business, you've already worked hard for it, and for whatever we do now, right, October 1st to the end of the year is how our 2021s are going to start off and be. So if you're still feeling like you're in this slump, if you're still, feeling like a victim because we're in a pandemic and, whatever is happening to you right now, that's going to be the way that you start 2021. It is not this magic reset. Do you guys remember Y2K? I mean, honestly, I was trying to explain this to people. I was like, do you remember we thought the world was going to end because computers were going to reset the date? I mean, come on. It sounds so ridiculous now, but we were they had the top scientists in the world working on this problem, and then nothing happened, right? I mean, it's going to be the same thing. We have no idea, but we have to impact today, right? Because it has a major impact on the future that we'll live tomorrow.
Right, and you said it beautifully that everything that we're doing starting in October is what's going to set us up for the following year. Everything that we do in real estate tends to be 90 to 180 days out. So you've got to be planting those seeds now and developing those leads and getting that business through the door so that you can come out in 2021 swinging.
So let's talk pivots.
Yeah.
Okay, so pivots for 2021. right? So like what things are you going to be focusing on in 2021 that are different, right? So you said no more print marketing, no more internet leads, but like I said before, a successful business has at least 3 different sales funnels or pillars to them. So quickly, which ones are yours?
So again, I don't like PPC, but it is still a pillar of our business.
So PPC,
I
so
still think
pay-per-click.
that's part of it. Database, that in my sphere. So I'm members of several different organizations.
So that is networking.
So
networking.
Yeah. So networking, our database, and PPC. You know, PPC is more than just Google AdWords or Yahoo or whatever you use. So we're big on Yelp. So we have a big Yelp following, which has been really great for us. We do some minor PPC through them to generate business that we really like, and then we get a lot of realtor referrals. So a big part of our business is realtor referrals. We've partnered with a title company and do a lot of business with Fidelity, and so they've tapped us into a few different networks to where we end up getting quite a few referrals from realtors across the country, and that this year has been a really nice addition to the business.
I know, especially because all of those people are moving into Arizona.
Right, yeah.
So pivot shifts that I have personally made. My entire business has been based on in-person education events. So I did home buyer education classes, realtor classes, business classes. So I teach a lot in person. So that the big shift for me has been growing this audience online, which is not easy. But it has provided a ton of really great content that I can supply to my database of past clients and people that I network with. I've also really doubled down on social media. Social media for me is really huge. YouTube, video. We're starting to see a steady stream of referrals that way, which is another area that you can take your PPC. Right, so if you're going to support AdWords, putting your own content out there is probably pretty huge right now.
Yeah.
And then just figuring out how to have digital relationships, right? So I have started, having introductory coffee meetings via Zoom, right? And sending people different gifts in different boxes and stuff like that. So it's been interesting, but those are the pivots, just learning how to do a really in-person business and take it online.
Yeah,
right.
It's been definitely a big shift.
It has, but a good one though.
Sure.
So with that though, because I wanted to talk about the market itself, right? So this has been one of the most epic years when it comes to the volume of sales and transactions. And one of the questions that I get often from consumers is that they feel that there's supposed to be some big market crash, but we tell them about supply and demand. And then I hear on the real estate side just how ridiculous that sounds and how this isn't going to end. And I'm like, okay, this isn't last forever, guys. You've never seen a trend that just goes like, whoo,
right?
It doesn't happen. It's normally like a staircase and it looks like mountain lines, right? So what is your take on the market right now?
So, if you follow the Cromford report, which I do, buyer demand seems to have peaked and has really kind of leveled out, which is good because the level of appreciation that we've seen is just not sustainable.
So just so you guys have some reference points on that. So we have seen a little over 5% appreciation for back-to-back months. And a good year in real estate on any Fannie or Freddie Mac real estate survey is anywhere between 3 and 5%. That's what they consider a stable and healthy market. We have been double digits before, but we've never been double digits in months, right? Since 2005, right? So what we're seeing is just record appreciation.
So I don't know what is going to happen, but things that I'm paying attention to are the eviction moratorium for Arizona ends at the end of October.
Okay.
And I think that there's a lot of people who are set up to be evicted from their home. So if Congress doesn't figure something out, if our state doesn't figure something out to protect landlords as well as tenants, we can see a huge problem there. And the number of homes that are in forbearance. The first wave of that, based on what they qualify for, is supposed to be ending relatively soon. Personally, I don't think the banks want to go through what they went through in 2007, 2008. So I'm thinking that a lot of these forbearances may turn into potential deferments, where the banks will allow them to, modify their loan or to turn those payments into deferments, to where if they do a refinance or they go to sell, those payments will then be paid off at that time. But I also think that a lot of people who have lost their jobs are not getting them back. And so you could see an increase, and I think we're seeing it now, of inventory hitting the market for people who are not doing distressed sales, but who are personally in financial distress. And we have some listings like that now, where the people just have to sell, take their equity out of the home to be able to provide for their family. So there's certain red flags that I'm paying attention to that I think will dictate where the real estate market goes. I don't know that the values are going to fall off a cliff like they did in 2007, 2008. You may see things slightly different, but everything I'm reading is that Phoenix seems to be different than a lot of other cities because so many people are relocating here that the demand for housing is just very, very high, and the supply is super, super low. So I think inventory will definitely increase, but for anything to remotely happen like what happened in 2007, 2008, the number of homes listed on the market has to drastically increase, and that demand has to really, really crash. So I don't know,
So a couple things on what you're just talking about. Okay, so one of the key indicators when it comes to the real estate market is obviously supply and demand. Supply and demand is going to be the biggest thing that impacts housing values. We've had a relatively low supply of houses for the number of people that have been in the market to purchase them for years now.
Yeah.
Okay. But then aside from that, there's also the affordability index. So basically what happens is because we've had so much rapid appreciation, right, it doesn't keep up with the median home price or the median income, right? So which in Arizona, depending on the municipality that you live in, is anywhere between like $65,000 to $72,000. So right now, our average home price was $228,000. Now it's in the 325s. So somebody who makes $72,000 hypothetically is maxed out, right, of purchasing at this place, right? So when that happens, right, in order to keep supply and demand at the levels that they are, we have to see an influx of people that make more money purchasing homes. Now, we are seeing that people from other states are relocating here, but they're not relocating here at the same pace that the regular consumer would be buying. So we are starting to see that demand kind of flatten out, right? And that's actually healthy, right? Because we don't want to price ourselves out of home ownership. So that's really helpful. This will last though, and this is all anecdotal, guys, I'm not a statistician, but I typically see when markets shift that it takes about 6 months, and even in 6 months, I don't see a catastrophe when it comes to home values, primarily because what happened with the Great Recession had more to do with a false demand, right? So we had investors from other states purchasing investment properties with a zero down, people qualifying for mortgages that, like, quite frankly, just stated the income that they wish they made to qualify, and that was allowed. And so we had a ton of false demand, so people weren't living in their homes, and then they were just dumping them in droves, right? So at the time when the Great Recession happened, it was 1% of mortgages that actually started that tsunami of foreclosures, right? When that happened, though, people were so over-leveraged with what they borrowed, they had no equity. So people's only choices were to foreclose and to short sell because they didn't have the option of just offloading the property. In this market, right, people have had like better qualifications. We've been way more conservative. We've kept people from over leveraging themselves. So in most cases, people have equity. And so if you have equity, you're probably not going to fire sell. You're probably not going to foreclose or short sell, right? Like that's unlikely. And so that's why we're not going to see a dramatic decline in housing prices, right? So that's a very huge distinction. no equity, lots of equity. Okay, now, as far as rates, I think rates are relatively low. I do think that prices will start to soften in the next 6 months. That's my personal prediction. And I'm not afraid to say it, right? Because, I mean, what's the penalty for being wrong, right?
Well, I think you're right. I think that there's going to be an increase in listing activity. You yourself said that there was 11% more listings on the market.
That's a national average. It was 7% more listings nationally. And we're starting to see it. And there was a reduction for the national average in mortgage applications over the last month, right? So they've seen consecutive weeks of declining mortgage applications for both refinances and purchases. And that, again, has to do with the affordability index.
I just read that this morning.
See, I'm a nerd. I also watch this stuff, but guys, no one really 100% understands what's happening. We just watch markers. I do know that it's unrealistic to expect that real estate is going to stay at this pace.
It just can't.
No.
It's not sustainable, and I don't want it to. I just don't. I mean,
Danny needs his work-life balance.
Well, no, you list the property for sale.
I do too, by the way.
You list a property for sale, and it is a night. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but when you end up with 10 plus offers on a house, it is such a pain in the ass to deal with all those different offers. And for me, and I stress this to our clients, is it's not always the highest offer that you should accept in that case either. I have a great example that we have a listing in Tolleson that we put up at $250. We got a ton of offers, and I thought $250 was high. And we got an offer at $260, and I think it's a My Home Group agent too. And I call him and I was like, "This is great, but this isn't going to appraise. It's just not." I do a ton to try to influence the appraisal process by sending comps, upgrades, all of these things to the appraisers, but there's no way that it's going to appraise for $260. What else are you going to do for me? And so, in those negotiations, I was able to get that buyer, or that agent was able to get that buyer to put in writing up front that they'd be willing to pay above appraised value in the event it doesn't appraise, and some other things. Mm-hmm. So it's I don't want this to continue because it's just not sustainable, and I don't like getting 10 offers on a listing because it's just such a pain to deal with. And it's just me being honest,
Look, one thing I'm gonna mention here, just because I know that people have very passionate feelings about escalation clauses and waiving appraisal contingencies and overpaying for a property, right? So literally agreeing to pay over the appraised value. And while those things can be very dangerous, right, to a consumer that one isn't prepared, they are really, you have to understand that sometimes you are going to overpay in an economy where interest rates are under 3%. And that property prices and home payments were higher 2 years ago with lower purchase prices and higher interest rates. So I just think that however you explain this to your consumer, so long as they understand that real estate is a long-term investment, anywhere between 3 to 15 years, they will be ahead even if this market does go backwards a little bit, right?
Well, and if they overpay for a house today, all of their neighbors are going to see that house sold at that price, and now that's a new comp for the neighborhood that's kind of elevating everything as well.
It does, but one of the biggest fears for consumers right now is that they're buying something overvalued. And the thing is, a lot of people you just literally describe something and you have two frames of thought based on people's money mindsets, right? Somebody's like, oh my God, they're getting ripped off. And then the other person's like, no, they're buying the home that they're going to live in for a long time. So one of the prime examples that I can personally give you on this is I bought a townhome in 2006 for $168,000. And 3 years later, that home was worth $33,000, okay? It was very difficult for me. I couldn't refinance. I couldn't sell the home. I didn't short sale. I didn't foreclose, right? I just kept paying it. And one of the biggest financial mistakes I made was I ended up taking out a second mortgage to pay this one off, right, so that I would get out of a bad mortgage. And then we ended up selling the property when it came back to about $100,000 in value. Had I kept that property today, I would be 15 years into paying it off. And that property, literally, I just looked at a home similar, is selling in the 200,000s. So I would have been ahead, and the thing is about real estate with all investments, everything, you only lose when you sell in a panic situation, right? And I shouldn't have sold. I didn't, there were other factors there. But if you kept it for a long-term investment like what it's intended to be, you typically will always win.
Yeah, I mean, your loss is only theoretical.
But I'm not theoretical.
Well, yours is real, but I mean, until you sell it, until you make that commitment to do that, it's all just on paper.
But the thing is, I bought at the height of the market, right? Literally, you couldn't name a worse time to have purchased a piece of property, right? Best time 2011, worst time 2006. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about when it comes to when you're explaining to somebody they found their dream home and they're up against, there's a different, it's the time value of money concept, right? Like, you're willing to pay more money to get it in today, right? Like, that's time value of money, right? You're willing to pay more for it today. And so it's the same thing with boats. People are paying 18% to get a boat that same day, right? Time value of money. So it is a real concept. It is a true thing. It's not always a negative thing if you keep it for the long term.
Do you have any concerns? I've probably referred over just the last 2 months 6 to 8 people to realtors up north because people want a vacation home because they can't really travel anywhere. Do you have any worries about some of these small mountain towns in Arizona where the values are getting pushed up because people are making these long-term decisions based on short-term problems?
Here's what I think. I think that Arizona needs another big city. I truly do. I think that Tucson has gotten pretty big, and Phoenix, and then aside from that, we just have a lot of small to medium-sized cities, and I do think that we need another major city in our state, and so I'm hoping that that's what this does. A lot of those places like Prescott and Flagstaff, I mean, they generally have really good supply and demand, even in a pandemic, because of the weather, and they don't have a ton of supply in general. So I'm not that worried about them. I am worried about the number of people that have purchased boats, though.
Yeah.
And RVs.
Boats and RVs and all these toys.
Yeah, I have no idea what's going to happen to those assets. But if you're looking to buy a boat, I bet you can get a deal in a year to 2 years.
Yeah, right?
I mean, I don't know. It's too hard for me to say, right? Because there's going to be something else, guys. There's always something every 10 to 15 years that is an economic catastrophe. This is probably ours. It's just hard to say, what it is. And I haven't done enough research into that particular question to really give a thoughtful answer. But no, I don't think that those areas are going to see a big decline just because I don't think that they had an oversupply to begin with.
Gotcha.
Yes. So,
cool.
Anyway, well, we've had a fun chat today.
Yeah. I think we've got 8 minutes left. Is there anything else that you wanted to discuss? I know that you're kind of the queen of staying in touch with your database, and is there anything special that you're implementing in 2021 that to continue to grow that and stay in touch with your sphere and database?
Yeah, so for me, guys, the big pivot that I'm making in 2021 is really just trying to put out as much content as I can because I'm not going to be able to see people as much in person. So I plan on having a lot. So I've started doing live Q&As on answering mortgage questions, on answering budget questions, and I've really tried to figure out ways that I could be of value past a real estate transaction. So for me, I am very passionate, very interested in personal finance. So I've really started, digging in. I just did a budget with me video where I just went through my monthly budget, talked about the different changes and shifts I'm making. So it's really going to be about providing a ton of content out, more than I ever have before. Probably 15 pieces of content a week.
So,
you still have 10 minutes.
Okay. So if, for this audience, if you're an agent, if you're solo, running a small team, what are some things that an agent who doesn't have a ton of time on their hand and kind of the support system that you have in place that they can do to stay in touch in effective ways with their database?
A lot of this stuff I do on my own, just so you guys know. But I would get your iPhone out and just record one video where you're giving 3 pieces of advice. So not a how-to. People can Google a how-to like just on their own. They don't need your how-tos, right? But they want your advice, right? Why is this the best way to do this? Why is this the location to live in? Why is this 3-bedroom house better than a 3-bedroom house across the street, right? So they need your advice and your input. And if you record a video, right, anywhere between 3 and 7 minutes, you can use that information and provide it in a variety of different platforms like Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube and Instagram stories. So if you had only that 3 to 7 minute video, splice it up a million different directions. We have a question, believe it or not.
Emily would like to know where we can find more of your content.
So Danny, where are you?
I'm on Facebook, Instagram, tons of stuff on Instagram, YouTube. I've got a podcast, so I'm on all the podcast platforms.
What's your, so it's Dan, do you go by Daniel Brown?
No, Kelly asked me that too. And all of my marketing material and stuff, it's Daniel Brown. And then when I meet a client,
no, I know, but on social media, we're
Danny
not
Brown.
to confuse
Yeah.
them. Okay,
Yeah.
Danny Brown.
Yeah, sorry. And my podcast is Danny Brown Talks Phoenix.
There you go. Okay, and I am Lizy with 1 Z, often auto-corrected to lazy. But Lizy with 1 Z, and then Irvine on Instagram, and then Hoeffer pretty much everywhere else. So if you Google me, you can see a ton of videos. Yes. So thanks, Emily. Well, this has been super fun. I hope they let me steal the show again sometime soon. And I hope that we provided you guys with a ton of content. Go ahead and like the video, comment below. We'll try to get back to you guys. And then definitely keep watching MHG Live. It's a weekly show with a ton of really great real estate content, especially for agents, right? And anybody who's interested in real estate. So stay tuned for another one, guys. And thank you so much for joining me, Danny.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun.
Well done. Yay.
Cool.
That was great.
Yeah.
Super good.